Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Hawk Blogger. And it's a special Seahawks Saturday with Jeff Simmons at Real Jeff Simmons on Twitter. Brother, I always look forward to these. It feels like I've gotten in a rhythm where like my Saturdays don't feel right unless you and I can sit here and chop it up a little bit to get the day going. It's middle of the day for you, but how are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. It's hard for me. I have to follow Mike Sando every week, so that's not an easy
You
guy to follow.
You fit right in, my friend. I mean, people really look forward to hearing your takes. I think I've actually really enjoyed your arc over the years, right? Like when you and I got started, and obviously you had been a credentialed reporter, you'd covered the Bills, right?
Yeah.
And not as many people in the Seattle area knew you. You were on the show with me, and you're not a hot take merchant. Like that's not who you are. I'm not really either. But as you've been on more and more shows, you're on with Rob, you're on with me, you're doing all your stuff. I see so many comments from people that are like, "Oh man, I just want to hear from Jeff. Jeff's rational. Jeff's got like actual legitimate takes on things." And I go back and listen sometimes, and I'm like, "Man, yeah, Jeff made a good point there." So it's always great to have your sage Canadian wisdom on the show. So
Yeah, I wish we can get my wife to say things like this about me, that they want to hear more from me. And
what
I
does
don't know
she
if,
make of you, dude? What does she make of your sports like fanaticism?
like, she kind of knew what she signed up for when she saw me on a Sunday and had like four screens going and like would sit there from. So I got a little lucky that way. Her dad was like a golf fanatic, like is
Okay.
obsessed with watching golf, playing golf, has a simulator in his basement, like.
Hmm.
So I thanked him in my wedding speech that she thought like this kind of behavior was normal. And so I was lucky. I was kind of like, I got teed up there.
Ah, yeah. Good. Bringing it back to the golf.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. You mentioned the simulator. So I had bought a simulator. I actually had saved up to buy a legit sim for my garage. Loved it while I was just obsessed with golf, and then sold it to fund my entrepreneurial business, like to
Oh,
start all
no.
this stuff, to have my little nest egg to start working with. And I sold it to a firefighter, turned out, who was a fan. It turned out he knew the show.
Actually?
And that was kind of cool. And it's also, I got to say this, but like, got to jump the show because I'm really excited about this. But I've been talking about the JK Boots promo that we're doing. Man, these aren't cheap boots. Like they're expensive, but they're also like handmade, ridiculously high quality. They'll last you a lifetime. Jeff, we are one sale away already from being able to give a pair of boots to a wildland firefighter in the Northwest. When we get to our 10th sale, we're going with code HawkBlogger. We're going to give away a pair to a firefighter, which I love it, man. I love this promo. I love working with JK Boots. They're really great people over there. And not only will we trigger that donation, but we will also, that person will get entered to win a custom pair of Seahawks themed boots. I actually got some pictures sent to me last night of the boots that they're kind of working through in production as like the demo pair. Man, someone's gonna walk away with the only pair of Seahawks themed boots that are like a lifetime pair. So it's really cool. So you get 10% off, which it's a win-win-win. So if you haven't already, head over to jkboots.com, use code HawkBlogger, and you can be the 10th person and trigger this donation to a firefighter, protect our Northwest forests. So, man, I've gotten like, it just took a little bit, like 3-game losing streak, dude. And it was like despair everywhere,
Hmm.
but one win. And it was a good win. It was a good win, but one win. And I'm like, I've got so much life. I'm like un, unreasonably looking forward to playing one of the best teams in football tomorrow. Am I nuts? Like, how are you feeling about this game?
No, you're not nuts because again, I've been in that like wait and see mode the whole year, and I got excited at the beginning. But I think what made that win so intriguing and interesting was the parts that need to be good for Seattle were really good. And to see their like defensive line take over the game in the second half, to see what Chino did, to see what Kenneth Walker did, DK. If the Seahawks are going to be good, those are the guys that are going to have to take them. It can't be like a fluky game where like weird stuff happens or like a weird tip ball. Like for this team to be good, we need to see things that are real. And the defensive line has been, and to see Byron Murphy come out, and again, I kind of alluded to it. We talked the other day, but something like the more I've watched the game and like dug into the game, Byron Murphy was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And William Moffett and Derek Hall were awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I think that more than wins and losses is meaningful. And we need guys to emerge. We need players to emerge. Who are the guys on this team? Coming out of the Niners, my whole message was that the players aren't good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And to see that come out, and Atlanta's a talented team. They're a flawed team, but they're a talented team. To see who the best players on the field were, it was Bijan Robinson and then a bunch of Seahawks. And I thought that was really encouraging. And we want to see that now. Can these guys play like that again? Can they play like that against Buffalo? That's what it's all about to me.
It's so true.
Like,
you've been talking about that. We've been talking about that since we started this show. And I mean, you mentioned the 49ers game, and in the rearview mirror, more and more that looks like to me a tired team, a beaten up team that was like not ready to step into, like that was a must win for the 49ers. They could not go 0-3 in the division, and they have Super Bowl like seasoned veterans. Like they were ready to be able to play that game, and the Seahawks, they just weren't. What I see increasingly with Mafe, Hall, Murphy, Leonard Williams, now Roy Robertson Harris. Roy Robertson Harris gives me like the Tony McDaniel vibes.
Yeah.
Like the guy that he's one of your dudes. You know, he's not going to be a Pro Bowler. He's not going to be an all-pro player, but he's part of giving you a physical, identity. And that word, Jeff, I think has been such a key. Like that's been just beaten into me the last few weeks. Like when I went to Detroit and I was watching, like getting ready for the Lions and I was watching their film, it's like, you know exactly who this team's going to be each and every week. When you play the 49ers, you know who they're going to at least try to be. Like these teams establish, and it doesn't matter who they're playing. Those things are the things every week. I think that defensive front, man, I think you're seeing the outline of what could be the identity for this Seahawks, which is just a bruising, badass defensive line that sets the stage for everything else. And we're not even at full strength. I mean, who knows if Uchenna Nwosu will be like a factor this year, but he's another person that comes into it. So I am really eager to see, okay, let's see it the second week in a row, and let's see it against another good offensive line, and let's see how they do against an elite quarterback. And like I'm excited about that. I mean, I want them to win 100%, but I want to see some of those signs that this is for real, right?
I think that's what's so important. I think if we're evaluating the trajectory of the team, and what's cool about their defensive line group is like Leonard Williams is signed up for another 2 years after this. Hall, Mafe, Murphy, they're all under 25 years old. They're not going away anywhere. It's not like over one of these groups. It's like they're built with veterans that are going to decline. These guys are going to get better, and they're going to ascend. Like what Murphy's doing as a rookie, like he's not getting
22-year-old rookie.
He's not getting the press like Jared Verse is getting, which is a conversation me and you could kind of smile at. But he's doing things that like Dexter Lawrence and some of these other guys weren't doing as rookies. Like the way he's blowing through double teams and impacting the game, he's not going to show up in like the stats. So he's not going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. But like he's doing things that are unique as his combo of power, speed, and then like the jump Derek Hall made is just like his brute strength and his power looks special. And now they're going up against a pretty good O-line this week. So it's going to be a really interesting test with the hardest quarterback to tackle in the league. But I'm eager to watch these guys play every week. And that to me is meaningful.
You know, we had that interesting conversation with Evan the other day about Derek Hall, and Evan was like, I still can't get over how much better he is this year. And he was kind of giving coaching a fair amount of credit. And I think here's the thing I will say, Jeff, when I look at the coaching situation is I'm going to pull it up here to get the latest numbers, but it all depends on which place you look. But the Seahawks, by Pro Football Reference, number 1 in the NFL in pressure rate. And that's after, last year, let's see where they were last year. Last year, the Seahawks they were like 10th. 3, 6, 9, they were like 10th. So I believe that Mike Macdonald has had a equally distributed impact across the defensive front on creating pressures. And I think people saying, oh, Mike Macdonald's the genius in defense, but the numbers aren't there. I think they're not looking at all the numbers properly. Like, pressure is his number one thing that he is able to create, and I think he's doing that. But
go ahead.
I was just sorry, but like Derek Hall, I think if Derek Hall was the Derek Hall of last year, I don't think he'd be doing what he's doing this year. So I think credit needs to be given to Derek Hall. I think he has made the leap. He is a different player. He's a different physical specimen than he was a year ago. And I think he would be better even with last year's coaching. I just don't think he'd be as good as he is this year.
And yeah, it's a position group that you see big leaps. We saw with Boye Mafe, he was a completely different player year 1 to year 2. I referenced Dexter Lawrence, some of the other guys where it takes them till year 3 to really peak. And I think the game was moving really fast for Hall, and he couldn't kind of figure out. It's a very different game at the college level where you can just win with pure talent. You have to be really technically sound and be able to play fast. And the things that I don't know if you can kind of just purely say it's coaching. And obviously I don't want to take away from the coaches, but Robert Mays put out a clip last week, and I thought it was perfect of what Hall is. He was caving in the offensive line with his power. And that's a pretty good right tackle. I think it's a first-round pick from Washington, I think, a right tackle there. And there are 3 plays in the game where he just crushes the entire pocket purely on his talent level. And I don't know if you can say that's coaching. I think he's just what they liked about him. They graded him as a first-round player is that he had unique power.
Mm-hmm.
And the player they really wanted in that draft, if we're being honest, was Will Anderson, who's been the all-pro level player. But what I actually didn't mind about Hall at the time was he felt like he was kind of Will Anderson light. But now, Hall's power is better than Anderson's. He is uniquely built individual. He doesn't have probably the pass rush explosiveness, but he just does things with his power like Frank Clark used to do when he was peaking. We all saw that Detroit sack, but he's got what Pete used to call as unique quality. That is rare what he can do.
Yeah, I also love that that's who he is. It's not just that he's better, it's that he is physically dominant, right?
Yeah.
He is not a speed rusher. He can do some of that a little bit, but he is going to, you don't have to, it could be against an athletic tackle, but he is going to drive your ass backwards time and again. And that is, not only is it fun to watch, not only can it be consistent week in, week out, because speed rushers, they've got to get a guy get the right get off. It's not as consistent. It can be really amazing if you've got it, if you're Von Miller or whatever, but power plays every week. And then on top of that, that's taxing as an offensive lineman. It's different to have to anchor against a bull rush over and over and against that kind of power over and over again, that then I think saps you a little bit as the game goes on. And so I love the combination of him and Mafe. And Mafe's shown me more than I expected. He has grown. I always thought he was a little bit, he wasn't the most physical player, but I think he is really developing that way as well. Murphy at 22, I was looking, Jalen Carter, who was in the Defensive Rookie of the Year conversation last year, this year he's exactly what I kind of thought he'd be. He's he vacillates between absent from a game and dominant in a game.
Yeah.
Murphy's a guy that is going to be lunch pail, man. He's going to be there, play in, snap out. And he's just going to get better and better. I was kind of curious. You mentioned Dexter Lawrence. What's the story there? You found that he was not effective or not really a impact player the first couple of years?
So funny enough, when he was drafted, like a lot of like the analytics, football voices were very critical of that pick. They had traded Odell Beckham for that first round pick, and the people were like, "Why are you drafting a run stuffing defensive tackle in the first round?" And we've gone kind of the analytics have said like shouldn't take players that only impact the run game. And the first 2 years of his career, he kind of was that player. He was more of a run stuffing defensive tackle. He was kind of considered a bust. And a lot of the other Clemson defensive linemen that have come into the league, the highly drafted ones, kind of have busted. And then around year 3 and year 4, he developed this like, I don't know if it was his like his like confidence. I don't know if it was his physical strength, but he just started taking over the game and just doing what he does now. And he's gone better each year. It was like that 2022 year where he really took off, but he just became a different player. Like he always had the ability to like win the run game. And then he just became a complete player. And it took him like until that 3rd or 4th year to really take off. And there's been a lot of other defensive tackles that have had that trajectory where it took 2 years and then the 3rd year, 4th year. Like Matabuke in Baltimore got slowly better every year. And a lot of people said it was Mike McDonald, but year 1, he was pretty quiet. Year 2, he had like 3.5 sacks. And then all of a sudden, 6, 12, totally different player. And we've seen those kind of progression. Lawrence is probably the best one because I think there's a case he's the best defensive player in the league right now.
Yeah,
and he's become that good.
Yeah.
But if you looked at like how he was being talked about in like, I think he was drafted in like 2019. In like 2021, like he was considered a bust. And the fact that we're seeing flashes from Murphy that look like he's got like the ceiling he has and what he's doing, he hasn't taken over a game yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to see that game. But I think if you look closely, I think you have to be really encouraged with what's there.
Yeah, I am looking up real quick something just to see. Yeah, I mean, Dexter Lawrence, PFF grade for whatever that's worth. As a rookie, 76.2. Second year, he was 79.7. So he was good. He wasn't dominant good, but he was good. Byron Murphy still is at a 63.3, but his last game was 74.6. And so he had a couple forgettable games, well, at least one against New England that was not great, and he hasn't had enough snaps to really make up for it, but he's having the look of like a 75, 76 kind of player. That's not far off from what, I mean, Lawrence was a 76 player as a rookie. So that'd be interesting. I don't know. Obviously, they're not similar players in how they play, but I mean, Dexter Lawrence is a massive mountain of a man. But I think that's an interesting one. I saw this show up from Tuck Tuck. He says, just listen to the intro. I want to say, Jeff is my favorite person to have on the show. Look forward to it every Saturday. See, buddy? It's not just me.
Okay.
It's other people. Yeah, it's true. We also have some amazing generosity going on in chat. Rick is like on a roll with, maybe that's what R stands for, Rick Roll. Gifted 10 Hawk Blogger memberships, brought more people into the community. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you for doing that, Rick. And then Vince Ochoa, he gifts 10 Hawk Blogger memberships. Sorry, Vince Ochoa becomes a new member, and then he donates 5 Hawk Blogger memberships. That is quite a amazing entry into the crew. So Vince, thank you for coming aboard. Welcome to the family, and thank you for bringing others in. We got a couple others as well, or at least one more. Garth Knight with a super chat says, Jeff, explain to Brian how much better Canadian peanut butter is versus America. I don't know this. Tell me about this.
There's like very few things I'll come out and say Canada's better than America at. For those who don't know this, like my grandparents had a condo in Florida. So I've been going down to the States every year in my life. And so I'm very familiar with, I've spent a lot of time down south. I spent a lot of time from football trips. We have a couple brands of peanut butter here that aren't in the States. And it's one of the things we actually do have better. Like there's like one called Kraft. I don't know. Do you have Kraft peanut butter?
No.
Nope. So that's like a Canadian company. They make some of the best peanut butter you can find, both the crunchy, the smooth. And even I think we have both had one called Skippy. And our Skippy one, for whatever reason, is better. And so I'm not really sure why,
It's
but
interesting.
yeah.
See, I'm an Adams peanut butter, and I have a hard time believing that there's like a
Yep.
significantly better peanut butter than Adams Crunchy. But I'll have to. I love peanut butter, so I am now consider me my curiosity piqued. I'm gonna have to check that out next time I'm up north of the border. Um, Jeff, there's a bunch of stuff going on around this game, this matchup with Buffalo, and you're obviously close to Buffalo. You used to cover the Bills. You get kind of some of the coverage around that team, even where you are. How do you think the Bills are thinking about this game? How do you think Bills fans, how are Bills coverage? Are they kind of expecting this to be a cakewalk against a mediocre Seahawks team?
That's what I expected. And I start digging into like some of the writers I know around there who are pretty smart and some of the other guys in the game.
Whoops. I think we lost you for a bit, Jeff. Your internet's a little choppy today. You still there? Well, seems like the Buffalo Bills fans have decided that they don't want Jeff to commentate on this game. So we'll let Jeff get himself back going. While we're taking a brief break with Jeff, I'll just say I wrote an article over at hawkblogger.com last night that encourage you to check out. I wrote about how rain is potentially going to affect this game for the Seahawks and how it's going to affect the game for the Bills. And I was kind of surprised. Actually, I spent a lot of yesterday trying to find the data that I was looking for. You can't really find weather splits almost anywhere. And especially like rain versus clear weather. Even Pro Football Reference, StatHead, all that stuff doesn't have the splits I was looking for. So I finally found them, and I don't know why I didn't start there first, but FTN Fantasy, promo code HBAM, by the way, gets you 15% off. They have a split for rain or clear weather. And so I was able to kind of brute force go year by year with Josh Allen and with Geno Smith and was able to look at how they were impacted by rain the last few years. And I'll share some of the more details with you a little bit later, but the bottom line is Josh Allen is more affected by the rain than Geno Smith, at least so far. And if you do just even some rudimentary Google searches online about Josh Allen rain, you'll find one little video clip of him looking like he hates the rain and running off the field. But other than that, you'll see some Reddit threads. You'll see some other things where Bills fans are like, I thought Josh Allen was supposed to be good in bad weather, considering he went to school at Wyoming and he plays in Buffalo. But as far as the rain goes, that has not been good for him. And it's not good for any quarterback, but he has been affected by the weather more than Geno Smith has. And I would just keep an eye on that, because I don't know, for folks that are in the Northwest, if you were up in the middle of the night the way I always am, it was blowing as well. It was really gusting last night. They're expecting not only rain during the game, but potentially 15, 16 mile an hour sustained winds with gusts up to like into the 20s. And so if we're looking at getting not only rain tomorrow, but wind, it's gonna really change this game. And honestly, I'm a little bummed. I hope the weather holds somehow. It's amazing how few rain games there's actually been at Lumen Field. People would expect this all the time, but it's actually really rare. For whatever reason, 1 to 4 on a Sunday here, it doesn't seem to rain. But I want to see these teams just trade blows without the weather being a real impact to what it's going to be. But it's looking like that won't be the case. And so then in that situation, you're going to have to see what these run games look like. You're going to have to see, what some different types of passes look like, a little bit less deep balls, all that kind of stuff. All right, Jeff, let's see if we've got you back.
Speaking of weather, like there was just like a crazy gust, and all of a sudden it said no internet on my screen while I was talking. So I've had to move into the house again.
All right.
Okay, so we should be good set up here. Okay.
So yeah, you were talking to us about what the Bills, that you thought the Bills fans would see this as kind of an easy win, but you're finding different.
Yeah, I was reading like one of the writers I used to know pretty well down at the Athletic, and they thought this is going to be a really hard game for them. And I thought they'd say, okay, they beat up on bad quarterbacks, and their defense has been terrible against good teams. This should be an easy win for Josh Allen. But there's a couple things that they seemed very concerned about. And one of them was something you mentioned, was their linebacker, Terrell Bernard, being out.
Mm-hmm.
And the replacement for him, and I think you said his PFF grade this week, but the replacement for him,
Yeah.
they said just on the eye test, he played in that Baltimore game where they just got absolutely destroyed. And he was awful. And apparently they're one of the worst teams in the league in giving up big plays. I think there's a percentage in the losses they've had. They've given up more big plays. And conversely, the team that's having a lot of success with big plays right now is Seattle. So they said if DK might have played, they might have picked the Seahawks, and DK still might play. But there's a lot of concern there with defending Ken Walker, even if DK's out, because they have that issue at linebacker, and their safeties have had a lot of trouble tackling. In some of the games they've lost, Derrick Henry, and he had that huge run the first play of the game. Joe Mixon had a lot of success against them when they played Houston. And Houston actually kind of owned that whole game. But Ken Walker against that linebacker and some of the issues they've had tackling. We've seen what happens when safeties can't tackle. We've saw it with Rayshon Jenkins. So they think this is going to be a really tricky game for them. And there's a couple of matchups they like on their side. But there are some things that they can do that are going to take over this game.
Well, to put some numbers behind your words there, the Bills defense ranks 28th in the NFL in explosive rushing plays allowed. They rank 19th in explosive passing plays allowed. So they have been a pretty good defense in a lot of ways, but they've given up a lot of big plays. And so play to play, they've been kind of a team that, you know, has played reasonably well, but they are susceptible to giving things up. And they've had, part of it's because they've had like a rotation of who's been in, because there's been a lot of injuries. They're missing Matt Milano. Now they're missing Bernard. They missed Bernard a couple other games. They had Taylor Rapp miss a game. DeMar Hamlin is a good story, but he's not necessarily really a great safety. I think the cornerback play, I think they have Christian Benford is a guy most people don't know. I don't know him that well, but is, by all things I've read from people I respect that watch the film, he's one of the top 5 corners in football this year. But Rasul Douglas, I think, can be got. I don't think that who's their other corner? Let me look that up real quick. Their other corner is, Taron Johnson. Taron Johnson's been good. He's not having the best year, but he's been a decent slot corner in the past. So anyway, that's interesting to hear. And I thought I asked Robert Mays about Terrell Bernard, because he talks a lot about the Buffalo defense and has over the years on his athletic football show. And I was like, how big of a deal do you think it is if he's out? And he's like, it's a very big deal. That guy's really good. So I don't know, man. Let me turn it for a second to the DK topic.
Yeah.
So one, I got a gripe about something, and two, I want your take. So I put out the injury report yesterday before we talked to Mike McDonald, and I said it's meaningful that the Seahawks listed him as doubtful and not out. Yeah. And all the mentions were doubtful means he's out. He's not going to play. What are you talking about? And I'm like, I choose my words carefully, and I pay attention as much or more than anybody else. Like, I do think it's meaningful. And then Mike McDonald, he gave a lot of indications that, like, Greg Bell pretty much led him into saying he was going to be out. He's like, why? Like, do you think DK is going to be back next week? And Mike McDonald looked at him like, I haven't said he's out this week, dude. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I think all signs are that they want him to play. And when I asked him about the weather, I thought he'd take that bait and say, yes, weather might have some impact on whether we want him to play. He said no. This kind of weather will not impact the decision about whether DK plays. Do you want him to play? Do you think, like, is there part of you that's like, oh man, just hold him out? I don't want this guy getting more hurt.
No, I want him to play. If he's such a physical freak that if he's able to go, I would let him go. And I don't want him to maybe like only be running like go routes down the field and but it's really just like his knee is kind of bruised and he's got some of the ligament sprain. So if he can run, and I think just his ability to dictate coverage and him being on the field is super important. And so that's where I think, like, even if he's not 100%, and even if he's not taking over the game, I think his just presence alone, I would not be like, oh, he better not. We better save him for the stretch run. Like, I think what he can do for the rest of the team has like a big snowball effect.
I agree. No doubt about that. I'm a little bit, I mean, they need to win that Rams game next week.
They do.
And so if they lose DK for this, like, I'll be annoyed. I'll be honest. Like, if I had to choose, I'd rather have him closer to full strength for the Rams game. But if he can play, it's big. But let's talk about for a second. Let's assume that he doesn't. You are the person I want to have this conversation with, because I think I can have a reasonable, rational discussion. The JSN discourse, dude. I've been like shocked by it. And I think, honestly, I didn't even notice that he didn't have a big game against the Falcons because the team scored 34 points. They scored 27 points on offense. The offense was doing fine. I wasn't like, oh man, this person really blew it. But I think it's betting related, and I think it's fantasy football related, that people are like, this guy's a disappointment. This guy's not doing stuff. I don't have that read, and I'm kind of curious, like, as someone who is a very big JSN fan coming out, where are you on him so far this year?
I think there's two things there that people are really struggling with right now. I think the fact that he got taken in the first round, and people have seen like the success of first round receivers like Brian Thomas. If you watch him play in Jacksonville, like, he is a wide receiver one alpha. And you look at so many of the wide receivers that have hit in the league, you see a big impact, like, statistically. And JSN, I'll be honest, he's not an aesthetically pleasing receiver. He doesn't look fast when you watch him. And I thought in the Atlanta game, like, there was times where they were doing like those underneath screens and things like that, which I personally don't love for him. He looks a little stiff. And I think from like the aesthetically, and then the fantasy football thing, if you're in like a dynasty league and he was like the wide receiver one, like, the fantasy football community hates JSN because, like, he's not very efficient in terms of targets. And, like, I'll be honest, I was watching the Atlanta game and I'm like, he doesn't look like as explosive, but I still don't think he's still like, I think the New England game, we haven't really seen them tap back into that. I don't think that was like a fluke and it's just a bad defense. Like, that is what he is. He's a middle of the field receiver. And I think he had that incredible agility numbers and people are kind of expecting to see him. But there was a stat that came out and PFF Seahawks tweeted out, apparently from like separation score, he was 88% last week. I think it was the highest in the league, other than like, I think Dontavian Wicks. And so he's still winning on a lot of his routes. They just haven't been able to tap into that because, again, they have so many other things going on between DK and Walker. And I think we've kind of lost the thing. And like a couple weeks ago, I know like everyone's like, well, I want to see him do more. But like, I think we have to just be honest of kind of who he is and what he does. Like, last year, Jordan Addison absolutely lit it up. And I know he's had some injuries too, but like, I think JSN's played better than Jordan Addison this year. Then you watch Zay Flowers, and Zay Flowers has weeks where he looks like the fastest guy in the field, but he's a big up and down player. And it's not, I think people are just really locked into that first round status. And you see like Jaden Reed's had a lot of success. Josh Downs has had weeks where he's played really well. Same draft class, same kind of player. But I think we've kind of missed the mark on kind of what this team has become. I think the fact that Walker has become such a good player that JSN's third in the pecking order. There's just, I think.
All right.
Yeah.
I got to jump in, man. I've got more. I got a little bit of a rant I got to offer here. Who leads the Seahawks in receptions? Who's your guess?
DK?
Jackson Smith-Njigba.
Really?
Leads the Seahawks in receptions. He is on pace for how many receptions? 90. He's on pace for 90 receptions. And we're talking about this guy being disappointing. The Seahawks, where do they rank in the NFL in passing yards? They rank number 1. Where do they rank in terms of efficiency, like completion rate? They're like number 1 or number 2. They're high up there. DK Metcalf is having the best year of his career. Tyler Lockett is playing well at in his 30s. Kenneth Walker is playing the best he's played of his career, even as a receiver, and is taking more receptions. I think people are looking at this completely the wrong way.
I agree.
This is an offense that is doing, I wouldn't say it's even firing on all cylinders, but it's firing on a lot of cylinders. JSN is one of those cylinders, and good offenses do not spam one guy all the time. You can do that. That is the shape of some offenses, Tom Brady and Julian Edelman or Gronkowski or whatever. But Jackson Smith-Njigba is an important weapon. He is going to have a game, Jeff, could be this week, where he goes for another 8 catches, 9 catches, 90, 100 yards, whatever it is. And people are going to feel like either they're going to feel foolish, but most people are too prideful to feel foolish. They'll just be like, where's that been? And I'm like, listen to Gino. Gino will tell you. He goes where the coverage dictates. He's making the reads. He's going according to progressions. If you have issue with JSN's production, the issue is most likely either with Ryan Grubb and who he's prioritizing, or it's Geno Smith and who he's prioritizing, or it's the defenses and what they're giving. And Jeff, we could be having a different conversation right now. We could be having the conversation saying, you know what? Why is DK Metcalf not a bigger part of this offense? Why is he not realizing his potential? Nobody's having that conversation because he's having the best year of his career. So there's only so many passes and so many yards to go around. Appreciate that we've got enough talent to threaten defenses. So I think people are way, way, way off on their JSN takes.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think people, again, they're just so locked in like, we took him in the first round. Why isn't he producing like a first rounder? But again, I've said this so many times. All first rounders, are not the same. Like Jared Verse and Murphy, where do you think they would have gone in last year's draft? Where do you think Brian Thomas would have gone in last year's draft? Like, we have to get away from this like first round area. Like Michael Mayer was a guy we liked at that spot. He's now a backup tight end.
Yeah.
Dalton Kincaid, we're going to see him a lot this week. He has not put up numbers that are better than JSN's. So I think people have kind of lost the mark on it. He's the third weapon in a really good offense. That's good.
Well, let's talk about 2 guys you just meant. Well, you guys referenced Zay Flowers. Obviously, was taken close by. Really exciting player. We liked him. You mentioned him pre-draft last year. Who are the other receivers for the Ravens last year? There aren't any.
Exactly.
Okay. Jordan Addison. He had a great rookie year. Justin Jefferson was out injured. Who are the other receivers? There weren't any. Now let's look at Jordan Addison this year. Exactly. I just read an article about how he's saying, get me the ball more. He's projected to get 34 catches this year.
Exactly.
So like, people, please just like appreciate that we've got enough weapons that nobody has to be the absolute focal point every time, and appreciate that Ryan Grubb, who's the other guy who I think is not getting the love he deserves, is actually helping to coordinate career years for Geno Smith, for DK Metcalf, for Kenneth Walker, for Jackson Smith-Njigba, maybe for, he looks like AJ Barner and Noah Fant have been coming alive. That's good coordinating when that's happening. So I have zero patience for the fantasy football baloney or the betting baloney. Like, I'm in it for the Seahawks winning. And Jackson Smith-Njigba is part of why the Seahawks have won more games than they've lost.
Yeah. I thought the Detroit game was like a really interesting thing where I know Josh on our show was like, he didn't play very well. He was supposed to take over. He was 5 catches for 55 yards. And when I watched that game, it felt like every catch he made was a third down conversion. And he also had he was dominant on third down. And there was also one where on fourth down that they gave that crap penalty to Tyler Lockett. So he would have ended up with like 70 yards, and they lost a couple drives due to penalties. But it wasn't just like, if you looked at the raw numbers, he had 55 yards. It's like, meh, whatever. Jacoby Myers could have done that. But it was like, when I watched that game, I thought he was so impactful. And he won on every third down, it felt like, whenever they needed one. And that's essentially what we want to see more of. Again, I think a lot of it also, he's like, when he gets one of that screen in the open field and he's like 3rd and 15, he runs for 3 yards, it's like, oh, this guy has no juice.
Yeah.
But I just don't think that's who he is. I still don't love him. Okay, give me a second to plug in. But
yeah, I agree. And I think the types of plays where JSN is going to show up are, he'll be the intermediate guy. He'll be a guy that can get you the 10 to 20 yard play. He's not going to be the guy that gets you the 50 to 60 yard play. That's okay. Like, not everybody can. And if people are wanting him to be a number one receiver, I don't see that for him. I don't see that skill set. I am curious if DK doesn't play. I am curious if they start using him more outside, and I'm curious if he can look. I've always made this comparison. Darrell Jackson is kind of the productive, not super dynamic athlete that was on the outside, that was a great route runner and was a, near Pro Bowl, and maybe he had Pro Bowl years, I don't know, but like a very high quality receiver. I think JSN can be that and more. So I am curious. I don't want to see that this week because I want to see DK play. But if he doesn't play, that's kind of an interesting bonus. And we also will get to see more Jake Bobo, who had a brutal drop in Atlanta. And has had, if I'm being honest, I think Jake Bobo's had more of a disappointing season than JSN. I think Laviska Shenault had more of a disappointing season than JSN. And those guys are two guys that would get some more run if DK doesn't play. We have got a super chat from Lane Smith. Been a Hawks diehard my whole life in Wyoming and going to my first home game. Well, welcome, Lane. That's awesome. Been listening to Real Hawk Talk since 2017. Well, sorry for that. 2017, we were just really rough that year. And you got some Pagliacci pizza. It was great. Well, that is awesome. If you guys have not signed up at hello.pagliacci.com/hawk-blogger, the link is in the description of the video. You can get access to special deals on Pagliacci pizza. I'm working with Pagliacci. We're going to try to do some more fun stuff, so keep an eye on that. But love everything going on there with Pagliacci pizza. I'm actually even working my youngest is applying for a job at Pagliacci pizza.
No way.
So we'll see if he can get there, wash some dishes. Telling you, dude, having a disabled child that's becoming an adult and figuring out what work they're going to do, that's a different podcast for a different day, but it's stressful. Old School Seahawk, who is one of our absolute most engaged and generous and kind members, says, of all the unimportant things in my life, the Seahawks are the most important. Be kind and no friendly fires. 12. Spread the love. I 100% agree. No friendly fire is a rule here. Keep comments to football, not to each other, unless it's something nice that you want to say. Eric Kinnaman gives a super chat, says, Noah Fant is finally looking healthy, hopefully. He and JSN are the keys in the passing game Sunday. Let's take advantage of the Bills linebacker being out. See you at the game. Go Hawks. All right, Jeff. We could do a couple things. I've got a voicemail I could play, and I actually don't know what's on it, so that's a little dangerous. I always thought I should listen to them before I play them, but so far I've been lucky. Could do that. We could talk some more about this game. We could talk about anything else that's on your mind. What do you vote for?
I'd like to hear the voicemail. I think.
Okay. All right. This is dangerous. The good news about this is that it's going to mean that people are going to be subjected to my jingle, which I love doing. So let me get things set up here, and we'll get this all queued up. All right. Which is the right? I think it's this one. And let me get this all ready. And here we go.
Time to rise and shine, it's clear. HB Morning's voicemail's here. Play and laugh, let go of fear. Start your day with cheer, my dear.
There we go. Voicemail time. This one comes from Brandon. Brandon, please God, make this appropriate. Here we go. Here's the voicemail.
Hey, Hawk Blogger. This is Brandon Williams in Frankfort, Kentucky, one of the few and the proud Seahawks fans this side of the country. I just wanted to call and leave a message and say that since we lost Pete and Win Forever, you have stepped up in the biggest way and just lived your dreams with your passion for the Seahawks and your journalism career that you went with Tech. And, once Pete was gone, there was just this void of Win Forever, and it was a big part of my fandom for the Seahawks going back. And to see you put together this incredible ensemble cast of all of the contributors that make Hawk Blogger so special, all of the guests that make Hawk Blogger mornings so special, I just have to say, you have been bringing your dreams to life, and it's an inspiration. Thank you.
Wow. Well, man, I'm going to have to start playing more voicemails without listening to them. That was incredibly kind, Brandon, and thank you. And Jeff, man, from Kentucky. I love it.
Man, it's crazy. It's crazy just how far, I've run into people who watch our show from Toronto who didn't know me. We've seen people in, different continents, but, you don't expect to see a Seahawks fan in Kentucky. That is not where you'd expect anyone cheering for a Pac Northwest team. So that's really cool. I love that guy's voice. It was awesome. His accent was great. But man, what a cool message.
Well, it was cool. Thank you for that, Brandon. And if you want to leave a voicemail for us, you can just record a voice memo on your phone and then attach it to an email and send it to me at brian@hawkblogger.com. And I usually will screen them before I play them. I took a chance there, and it worked out. I don't think I'm going to do that very often, but it worked out that time. All right, Jeff. So, how are you feeling? I still feel like the Bills are going to win this game. That's my default feeling, and I'm okay with that feeling because I actually like these moments where I feel that way, but I'm like, the Seahawks can win this one. They can. It's not like, oh man, I'm going to be covering my eyes watching this game. I'm really eager to see this team at this time go up against a legitimate Super Bowl team. And it's kind of cool to feel a little bit of hope in that matchup.
Yeah, these are the games I kind of get excited about where it's kind of like the Seahawks, there's other than them falling flat on their face, there's not much for them to lose. I just want to see how they stack up. I felt this way going into the Lions game. Obviously, 3-0 felt a little bit different, but I was just so eager to see how they stacked up, how they can play against this team. Was last week real? And it's a game I'm really excited to see. We're going to learn a lot. We're going to learn a lot about McDonald. We're going to learn a lot about their defense. We're going to learn, Mike Jarrell has a huge matchup coming up, against. That could go either way, but. I just think it's a game where I'm really eager to see it. I don't think it's out of the question that the Seahawks could win the game. I'm with you. I would probably pick the Bills. I think the matchup of Rousseau and Jarrell is something that could kind of really blow up this game plan. And it's if Jarrell had some cool plays, but again, with backups, I always say this, you tend to see the more sample they get, the more exposed they seem to get. And Rousseau's had a really good year. Their D-line's pretty good. Mm-hmm. And if we had a better offensive line, I'd probably feel a little better chances, but I'm still not. I'll be the Seahawks offensive line is solved. So the weather doesn't help. I think that really plays into the Bills' favor. They've been one of the criticisms of them in the last few years is if Josh Allen didn't have a Superman game, they couldn't win. One of the things they have done as they've kind of shed a lot of their money. Well, I thought they'd take a big step back, but they've actually become a more well-rounded team where their offensive line is better. Their running game has been really good with James Cook, and the Seahawks are as bad as against the run as they looked in the first half last week. This could be a hard game to watch. But again, we've gone through this whole show. We haven't even mentioned Ernest Jones. I know we did a whole show on him, but I'm pretty excited to watch him play. I think that's going to be really fun. I don't know how effective he'll be with 2 days of practice and learning a new defense. But the more I think people have come around in that trade, I think just was a really smart move. I think in a game like this, especially if you have Jerome Baker trying to run it with Josh Allen, like, that part of the team, even as we won that game, I'm like, we're playing with such fire with that linebacker group. And
you hit on a lot of good ones there. I'm bracing for the Mike Jarrell return to earth kind of moment. As much as a fan of Jarrell I am, I don't like this matchup for him. I think Rousseau and Epinesa are both really talented edge rushers. Thank God Von Miller's not here for this game. That would be even rougher. I also, on the other side, I think that, well, not on the other side. With Josh Allen, yeah, I guess it is on the other side. So Josh Allen, I'm kind of braced for one of those games where maybe they do a lot of things right and Josh Allen makes some just crazy throws. He scrambles for 50 yards. He's like, he just is Josh Allen. And I don't want... It's going to be annoying to me when people are like, see, the Seahawks just, they suck. And I could absolutely see a game where the Seahawks defense plays well and for relatively well. And the Bills still put up 25 points or something like that and move the ball because Josh Allen he's the closest thing to Patrick Mahomes from a dominance perspective at the quarterback position in football. So I'm braced for that. But here's the thing, Jeff. I'm really looking forward to seeing the pass rush.
Yeah.
Again, I really want to see that group. I think there's something happening there. I think I'm looking forward to seeing Ernest Jones and Tyrell Dodson as a linebacker duo. Just inserting one guy, yes, he has to know the plays and all that. Mike Macdonald, he said something yesterday about Ernest Jones that had me thinking, maybe Ernest Jones isn't going to play all the snaps. Maybe they're going to put Tyrese Knight, because he seemed a little bit to question the details with Ernest Jones and getting on the same page. I don't know, but let's assume Ernest Jones plays. Having one guy that plays the run well and does not just jump into gaps and leave big gaping holes, he's not going to start doing that even if he doesn't know the plays exactly, because that's an instinct thing. I'm looking forward to seeing that. I'm looking forward to seeing Reek Woolen, Trey Brown, and Witherspoon play together for the first time in a few games. We have not seen this defense, like Woolen, Witherspoon, Brown, plus the defensive front, plus the edges, plus this, we've never seen that. And we haven't seen even the front plus the secondary in this way since week 1. So
yeah.
I'm eager. I'm eager to see. And if they come away with this win, I don't want to hear a single thing about yeah, but this, that, or the other. This would be a huge freaking win, dude.
Yeah, if you want a stamp on Mike Macdonald's program, I think this game could put it on as much as any other game, unless they sweep the Rams or win in San Francisco. But this is a top 5 team in the NFL with one of the 3 best players in the NFL, and to win that game in a year where you do have some holes and you're trying to fix some stuff, I think it would just say more about kind of the direction of Mike Macdonald's program and where they can go than anything else. And again, me and you have said the whole thing since June. You can tell what something good looks like. And if some of those fraudulent wins and they had the whole year of those first 3 games and it looked kind of like that, sure, maybe we would have been excited. But this is the kind of game where you can be there's something real brewing here. And I think you could have come away with that conclusion last week. This is a different tier of team. To build and stack those 2 wins after what they were kind of nosediving, I think that would be super meaningful.
Well, one thing I think that you can count on if the weather is going to be windy and wet is that there'll probably be a lot more punting than there might normally be. Yeah. Special teams is a big deal. The Bills come into this game ranked 25th in the NFL in net yards per punt and 30th in the NFL in average kick returns. They also have not kicked a single field goal over 50 yards. And so their kicking strength could come into this game. Their coverage situations could come into this game. And also, we should be honest, D. Williams has had some questionable moments returning punts. When he catches the ball, though, I'm trying to come up with his actual last few punt returns, but I think almost every game since recently he has had a solid punt return. He had one against Atlanta.
He was good last game.
Yeah, let's see. It still doesn't give me each individual play, but yeah, I mean the guy's averaging 9 yards a return and seems to be getting about 10 to like he's been getting a lot of 10 to 20 yard returns the last few games, so that could be big too. All right, any other thoughts for you, Jeff, as we kind of round towards the end of our show this morning?
The division is getting a little crazy. It seemed like I was kind of hoping the Rams would fall off a cliff, and seeing Puka Nacua come back that good, Jared Verse and some of those guys, Stafford, look, I watched the Rams-Raiders game last Sunday when Stafford had no targets playing, and they were struggling with like a bad Raiders team. And like, I'm like, okay, this team looks cooked. And so to see them come back out, obviously they were very helped by the refs. But I wasn't thrilled to see the Rams kind of get back into that. That's such a big game next Sunday. I'm annoyed that they get 10 days rest. But all of a sudden the division with Arizona pulling out a win they probably didn't deserve either. The Chargers should have easily won that game. They pissed it away. The refs helped on that one too. But it's just this division is all of a sudden wide open. And then you have like David Lombardi fighting with like national media members about the Niners. And like, oh my God, I don't know if you saw his Jerry Rice thing yesterday.
Oh my God.
It was,
with four verts.
That guy's such a good dude too. Like he does the show with Nate Tice, and he was just like, oh, Justin Jefferson might be the best. He made that crazy catch. And Lombardi comes out. He's like, no, Jerry Rice had 1,600 seasons of 100-yard catches or something. And I love, he's just like, you're a loser.
You're just a dork. I mean, it's just, and he called him out. He's like, no media member is more, what did he say? More
fanboyish.
Yeah, basically more biased towards their team than David Lombardi, which is just true.
Weird energy.
I mean, we've said this so many times with Lombardi, dude. If you just own the fact that you are not a professional reporter, that you are not a objective observer of the team, that you are a fan who also covers the team, hey, right here, that's who I am. I don't try to pretend that I'm like some objective reporter. I'm wearing a Seahawks hat. I tell you what, when I walk into the VMAC, and if I'm intentional, there's times I will wear Seahawks stuff. There's most of the time I don't. And I see when I wear Seahawks stuff, some of the reporters are looking at me like, dude, what are you doing? Like, I'm not you. I'm not trying to be you. I'm not trying to pretend to be you. Lombardi absolutely is. Like, I'm in a suit all the time and I'm Mr. Go-Getter. Like, dude, just be yourself. It's really hard to watch people lie about who they are. And that's who Lombardi is.
Yeah. We people on our show are probably like, this guy lives rent-free in your head or something, but it's actually kind of the opposite. I'm kind of glad that like I didn't realize this was like, I thought it was just like a Seahawks versus Niners fan, but like that For You section on my Twitter, like it's always showing me these like Niners bloggers are like, you are like, and there was one this week where he actually like he had like a tweet about like the running EPA to like justify that like Brock Purdy's not being helped by anyone. And he actually put out like the complete wrong numbers. And then he deleted it, didn't say anything. And like a bunch of them like, oh, okay, you're now just making up stats to.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, but like there's some big games this week. I'm curious. I wish they were playing someone better than Dallas. I don't have any faith Dallas can beat them. Dallas is a team that is like, if you want to be like depressed about the state of your team, Dallas is like the number one maybe team right now, other than like the Carolina, Cleveland.
Are we sure there's no chance? Like they're coming off their bye week. They just got blown out at home. Like their pride's on the line. They've got Dak Prescott. They've got CeeDee Lamb. So there's really no chance that they could victimize this Niners defense and maybe rise up and like make a win and get a win here. There's no chance.
I'm pretty much close to no chance. I hope I'm wrong. They're out. They're missing Parsons. He's out.
Yeah.
They're missing DeMarcus Lawrence. He's out.
Deron Bland.
They don't have a running back. Like it's just, and then like the vibes around that team are so bad right now. Where like Jerry Jones came out, it's like Mike McCarthy's offense sucks and it's old and it's like stale. And then he's like threatening to fire radio hosts. It's like, and Dax had a bad year. Unfortunately, Dax played pretty awful. So listen, I'm going to be cheering hard for the Cowboys for like the first time in my life this week, but I don't know. I just don't see the script right now.
Yeah. I mean, I just wouldn't count out, I wouldn't count out a team that's got a good quarterback and an elite receiver. Like, yeah, I don't think you can just count them out because the 49ers have been struggling, but yeah, there's a lot more paths to victory for the 49ers, and the Cowboys defense is hurting. So who knows? Maybe crazier things have happened, but I will never rule it out, especially if it benefits the Seahawks.
Okay. One more question.
Yeah.
Do you think this sweatshirt is too big?
No. You got to go baggy sweatshirt sometimes, man.
My wife has been saying this looks like the right style. I think I look like a Christian Haynes in it with like a weird body. So somebody tell me if I'm wrong here. I'm going to read the comments, but
no, you're good. You're good. That is the style, man. That's that's the like kind of the Lululemon,
Yeah, this is the Lululemon shirt. It's just
yeah.
I feel like I'm Christian Haynes.
Josh likes it. Josh is on your side. So he's the arbiter of style. He's young enough that we can trust his evaluations.
Like, I'm not jacked like Evan is, Like Evan looks like the special teams coach walking around with like
Evan looks special. I'll give you that. I don't know about special teams, but he looks special.
Like, I don't know if you've seen like John Gruden's like kid, like brother Deuce Gruden, and he's like walking around.
You mentioned Gruden to me. I didn't get a chance to listen. He was on Pardon My Take or something like that, right?
Yeah.
He was talking about the Seahawks. Talking about Grubb or something. What was that? I didn't get a chance to listen.
So I don't know if this is the best. John Gruden doesn't have the best rep right now in the NFL, but he's probably the most entertaining guy you can listen. And he was saying he wakes up every day at 4 a.m. to study NFL because he wants to get back into coaching. And they're like, okay, like who's like the coach that right now is like catching your interest? And I figured he was talking before about how he loves Shanahan and McVay. They kind of came from him. And out of nowhere, he's like, there's this guy Grubb in Seattle. And I'm like, what? Like, out of nowhere, he's like, the coach I like the best right now is Ryan Grubb. And he was saying he's doing things with speeding up tempos that he's never seen before. And he said that he's seen some of that in college, but he hasn't seen anyone. I think you've talked about this a little bit, but he's doing things with like mixing up tempos between plays to catch defense. And he said, like, when he's watching film, the guy that gets him the most excited was Grubb. And I was like, what the hell? That was not the answer I expected. And then he just started talking about Boye Mafe and how like he would love to coach Boye Mafe. And I'm just like, oh my God, I love Gruden. But he's done some pretty bad things. But that one threw me off. I did not expect that.
Yeah, the Grubb discourse is one to watch for sure, and there's time to go. But I will just say, if Shane Waldron had the number one passing offense, had been having DK Metcalf having a career year, having all these guys have career years, we would have thought it's the next coming of Sean McVay. Like everyone would be freaking out. Ryan Grubb has the number one passing offense, has career years for all these guys so far. And if anything, I think there's more negativity out there about Grubb than there is positivity. So yes, there's been issue with the offensive line, which continues to be something, a work in progress. I talked to Scott Huff this week. I posted an interview on patreon.com/hawkblogger. I will also probably be writing an article about that today, maybe. We'll see. But I think we're in good hands with Ryan Grubb, and I'm looking forward to seeing him continue to grind on this until he figures out how to turn this into a consistent, reliable offensive football team. And as far as NFL teams go, he's actually on the higher end of that spectrum than people want to admit, at least in terms of points scored week in, week out. All right, Jeff, I got to run. It was great to see you this week. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Everybody, I will be back tomorrow, probably do some sort of pregame show before I head out and watch the morning games. So see you tomorrow morning. Until then, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at HawkBlogger. I am Brian Emhauser, and this has been episode 216 of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Head on over to JK Boots. Do it now and use code HawkBlogger to get access to 10% off and be the 10th sale that triggers a free donation of boots to a wildland firefighter to help keep the Northwest forests safe and clear. So code HawkBlogger at JK Boots will do it. All right, folks, have a great rest of your day.